The Reign of the Damned. It was a cold and damp night, typical of autumn in that remote region of the countryside. The dense, silent forest seemed to hold its breath, as if it knew something was about to happen. A group of 7 people, dressed in black robes and hoods, walked in single file along a narrow trail, carrying torches that cast dancing shadows on the surrounding trees. They were members of an obscure cult called the Devourers of the Veil, who believed in ancient rituals to bring back entities lost between worlds. The leader, a tall man with a deep voice named Elias, carried an ancient, heavy book bound in leather with strange symbols engraved on the cover. He stopped in a circular clearing, where a large flat stone served as an altar. The other 6 gathered around, forming a perfect circle. Among them were Clara, a young woman with dark hair and deeply skeptical eyes; Marcos, a strong and silent man; and Laura, an older woman who always seemed on the verge of a nervous breakdown. The other 3 were siblings, Lucas, Pedro and Sofia, all with dark, obedient expressions. Elias opened the book and began to recite words in an unknown, guttural, and terrifying language. The wind began to blow harder, and the torches flickered, almost extinguishing. Clara felt a chill run down her spine but remained silent, watching. The ritual continued, with Elias pouring a thick, dark liquid onto the altar, which seemed to absorb it as if it were alive. He then took a knife and made a shallow cut on his own hand, letting the blood drip onto the stone. "The veil is opening," whispered Elias, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and ecstasy. "They are coming." At that moment, the sky, which had been clear and starry, began to darken rapidly. Heavy clouds formed, and soon the first drop of rain fell, followed by another and another, until a torrential downpour drenched the forest. The icy water ran down the faces of the cult members, but no one moved. Elias continued to recite, his voice now almost a shout, competing with the sound of the rain. It was then that Clara noticed something strange. The rain wasn't normal. The drops were dark, almost black, and left a sticky sensation on the skin. She looked at the others and saw that they were equally disturbed, but no one said anything. The ritual was working and they knew it. Suddenly, a muffled sound echoed through the forest, as if something large were moving among the trees. Clara looked back but saw only darkness. Her heart raced, and she felt a pressure in her chest, as if the air were growing heavier. Elias finally stopped reciting and closed the book, looking at the group with a dark smile. "It is done," he said. "The veil has been torn. They are here." The arrival of the creatures. The group began to move back toward the town, which was about an hour's walk away. The rain continued to fall, and the path was slippery and dangerous. Clara felt that something was wrong but couldn't pinpoint what. It wasn't until they reached the first house on the outskirts of town that she realized. The house was silent, but the door was open, swaying slightly in the wind. Clara looked inside and saw something that made her freeze. A figure was crouched in the corner of the room, but it wasn't human. It was something deformed, with long, disproportionate limbs, pale, glistening skin, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. The creature was feeding on something on the floor, and Clara didn't need to look closely to know what it was. "Elias," she whispered, but he was already looking at the scene with an expression of triumph. "They are here," he repeated, as if this were a good thing. The group continued to walk through the town, and at every corner, in every house, they saw more of these creatures. Some were small and agile, crawling on walls like insects. Others were enormous, with grotesque bodies and faces that looked as if they had been smashed and reassembled haphazardly. The creatures didn't attack the group, but Clara felt it was only a matter of time. Death arrives. Marcos was the first to die. He was walking at the front of the group when one of the creatures, hidden in a dark alley, leaped onto him. He screamed, but the sound was drowned out by the rain. By the time the group reached him, it was too late. His body was unrecognizable, torn apart and scattered on the ground. The others continued, but fear was now evident on their faces. Laura began to cry, murmuring that they had done something terrible, that they shouldn't have tampered with the veil. Elias ignored her, continuing to lead the group with cold determination. Pedro was next. He stumbled into a puddle of dark water, and when he tried to get up, something pulled him under. He disappeared in seconds, and the water turned red. Lucas and Sophia tried to help him, but it was too late. Now only Elias, Clara, and Laura remained. They ran toward the town's church, hoping to find refuge there. But when they arrived, the door was locked, and the creatures were closing in. Laura was next. She tried to climb a fence, but one of the creatures grabbed her by the foot and pulled her down. Her screams echoed through the town but were soon silenced. Twist. Now only Elias and Clara were left. They ran into the church, locking the door behind them. The rain continued to fall outside, and the sound of the creatures scratching at the walls was deafening. "What have we done, Elias?" Clara asked, desperate. "What did you make us do?" Elias looked at her with a dark smile. "It wasn't what I did, Clara. It was what you did. You were the missing piece. The final sacrifice." Clara felt her blood run cold. "What do you mean?" Elias opened the book again and began to recite more words in that unknown language. Clara tried to move, but her legs wouldn't obey. She was paralyzed, watching as Elias approached her with the bloody knife. "The ritual wasn't to bring the creatures," he said. "It was to bring you back. You died a long time ago, Clara. And now, you're going back to where you belong." Clara looked at her hands and saw that they were beginning to dissolve, as if made of smoke. She tried to scream but no sound came out. Elias continued to recite, and the creatures outside began to howl, as if celebrating. In the end, only Elias remained, standing in the empty church with the book in his hands. He looked at the door where Clara had been and smiled. "The veil is closed," he whispered. "Until next time." And then the rain stopped, and silence returned to the town. But Elias knew it was only a matter of time before the veil was torn again. And he would be ready,